Well, good morning and a very warm welcome to Sibos TV. I'm Daisy McAndrew, delighted to be your host for this week here at the Boston Convention Center for Sibos 2014. Now, we thought this was a good opportunity at the beginning of day two to sort of chew over the cud and see how yesterday, the first day of the week, went. And I'm delighted to have two expert guests with me to help me through and discuss how the first day went. To my immediate left, Chris Hall from Sibos Issues. Good morning to you, Chris. Welcome to the program. And Kimberly Long from Euromoney. Good morning, Kimberly. And thank you for joining me this morning. Well, I guess first of all, let's just say, Chris, how do you think day one went yet? Was there anything that you thought particularly shone or stuck out for you?
I think that it was a very, very busy kind of packed start. I guess the kind of big innovation from previous years was the kind of Sibos University stream, whereby we had academics from a lot of kind of leading universities giving the benefit of their research and perspective on a range of different financial market issues. But also you had the technology stream starting, and there was a lot of talk about how banks best capture and harness the power of the data that's available to them, and how they kind of improve their processes and services on the back of that. But you can't really ignore the kind of shadow of regulation over the industry, and clearly the keynote speech from Jamie Frazee of Citi was directly addressed that.
Absolutely, and we're going to have a bit of an in-depth look at Jamie Frazee's speech in just a moment. Kimberly, what did your organisation Euromoney make of yesterday? What do you think that Sibos is shaping up to be like this year?
I think this year there's definitely, what I found amongst everyone I've spoken to, there's a real prevailing sense that there's a lot of hope out there in the market at the moment. Like, there seems to be a bit of a tide change where, yes, we are seeing a lot of regulatory issues, but there's a lot of opportunity for innovation, and I think it's a really exciting time to be here, just to see how much collaboration is going on between the banks, and also there's so many technology vendors here this year as well. I think it's a really good opportunity for some new innovations to grow out of this year's conference.
Yes, certainly from the discussions we were having yesterday, that the tech side of things was so prevalent, very, very exciting for a lot of people. Quite scary for some others, though, because it's all so new. Things are changing so fast. There's so much to get to grips with that if you're not right in the middle of that sector, if you don't understand the big data side of things, it can be quite a frightening time. But a lot of opportunities for entrepreneurs, I think. Well, listen, we've mentioned Jamie Frazee's speech already. Obviously, that was the big keynote of the day yesterday. Let's listen to a little bit of what he had to say.
Compliance and control measures are not optional. They are our industry's license to do business. Without strong controls embedded in every aspect of its business, a firm can't survive, nor will it deserve to.
Interesting there, the use of not optional. It was quite a firm line, wasn't it? He was saying to the audience there, don't think you can wriggle out of this in some ways.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that the industry has been wrestling with successive waves of regulation over the last few years, which have intensified both from a kind of post-crisis perspective of putting the financial markets kind of house in order, but also the kind of broader kind of geopolitical threats to the finance sector. Means that the kind of know your customer and anti-money laundering kind of regulatory side of things has also been very prevalent. And we're getting to the stage where it's such a cost for the industry that they need to look at new ways of doing things, and whether that can be the working with the kind of tech firms, as Kimberly mentions, or working more closely together to kind of create utility solutions to make sure that they do meet the regulations, but they do so in a way that allows them to kind of run their businesses as well.
Kimberly, it's funny, interesting, isn't it, where he said that not optional. It's almost as if he was saying, stop whinging about it. This is just the reality.
I think it is. There is a new reality now, and I think that we know why the regulators have brought in various measures. We know that these things can't be ignored any longer, and I think when you look at things like, say, with SEPA, where there was the 6-month extension on that earlier this year, and I think the reality is that you can't postpone these things. If once they've been implemented by the regulator, that you have to comply to them. There's no room to back out of this. So it's a very firm point to make, and one that I think really needs to be paid attention to.
Yeah, absolutely. But then Jamie Frazee did, I think, follow it up by saying, it wasn't all stick, there was a bit of carrot there, or there was a bit of encouragement there to say, well, given that we are stuck in this situation, how should we deal with the regulators in the best way? And that's what he says in our second clip.
The most important issue on which we must work together, encouraging regulators to build a coherent, consistent, and unified regime of global financial regulation. We can't build it ourselves. Our role must be one as advocates. And as advocates, we need to speak with one clear and consistent voice.
So, Kimberly, there he was sort of saying, well, given where we are, this is how I think we should best deal with the situation.
I think, yeah, there's a definite need. Now I think there's a recognition that everyone kind of needs to pull together for these things. The time of when banks could work in silos separately from each other is very much over now. If they want to actually comply with all the regulation that's out there, it's a time where they have to start moving together and working together now.
And Chris, do you get the impression that he's also saying we've wasted a bit of time, energy and money in the way that we have been dealing with this the regulation issue, that perhaps not working together is a waste?
Yeah, I think that's definitely true. I mean, I think that banks have a history of wanting to, do things their own way, and that they always think, or very frequently think, that there's something within their own DNA, their own kind of special sauce in the way that they do pretty much almost anything. That they don't really want to let go of, and that acts against the opposite impulse to kind of pull together and come to joint solutions, which inevitably will reduce cost. And I think even after the kind of biggest shock in their working lives of 2007, 2008 period, there was still that kind of, well, no, we'll still do these things our own way. We'll still meet the regulations in our own particular proprietary fashion, and that has wasted time and money.
Because I suppose if all the banks are employing this host of different lobbying firms, different people to try to influence policymakers, be they political policymakers or other policymakers and legislators and regulators, then those lobbyists aren't all going to agree on one voice and one message, and that over time that is going to be both expensive and wasteful.
Well, it's difficult for kind of regulators and politicians to actually kind of take so many messages on board. If you think of the kind of the MEPs that sit on the kind of committee that created a lot of the European or passed a lot of the European legislation. They also sit on other committees, and so if you're kind of drowned in kind of white papers and consultations and from different parts of the industry, but you're also you're dealing with agriculture, you're dealing with all sorts of
they're
other
not experts
issues.
in any one field.
One lobby group after another, they might be representing hugely different parts of the finance industry, but they'd be only human if it didn't blur into one once in a while.
Absolutely. And Chris, I know you wanted to highlight this article in your magazine, Sibos University Getting Noticed by the Technocrats.
Yeah.
So this is public engagement is the key to better relations with regulators. You thought that was a particularly interesting session as well, obviously on the same theme.
Yeah. I think, one of the guys who spoke at this session, who's a professor of finance at MIT Sloan School of Management, he was also had worked with the US derivatives regulator, the CFTC, and he was quite vehement in the way that he was kind of pointing out that a lot of the ways in which the finance industry engages with regulators really isn't making enough difference. And his solution was to actually bring the regulators out into the open, out into sessions such as an event such as Sibos.
which would make a difference, does make sense, doesn't it? Because of course, if you do that, you're not having all these expensive and wasteful, as we keep saying, secret, or not secret meetings, private meetings. And I'm sure that the public, the audience here would be very interested to hear what the regulators would have to say.
I think there is so much discussion and debate around it between everyone. If we could actually get everyone together in a room and really thrash it out, we could find out really what the best solution could be. There's so much speculation about, well, this is what we think the regulator wants, and everything's so open to interpretation as well. I think, though, in some degree, people will interpret the way that will favour them as well. So we need to actually work out what it is that will work for everybody, but also which will fit in with what the regulators are demanding.
And Kimberly, there's already been a lot of talk about collaboration, about that this is the Sibos, where collaboration is the buzzword. Do you think it's more than a buzzword? Do you feel that people really do want to collaborate, or is that just what they feel they should be doing?
I'm getting the feeling that there is a move more towards it. I mean, you just have to look around at the signings and all the agreements that are happening over the next couple of days. There is so much where there is a realization that there's no need to actually do things yourself when you can go out and find someone who can do things with you, and you can create the best solution by working together. But I think there's the realization that actually it needs to go beyond, say, who is just in this room today. I mean, I was discussing the KYC registry yesterday with someone, and they were saying how it's great to get the big global banks on board, but we don't really need to know much detail about them. We know that they're okay, we know that they're reliable. It's the other banks across the network, the ones who aren't here. They're the ones that we need to know about. They're the ones whose customers we need to know about. So it actually needs to permeate much deeper now, I think.
Interesting. Chris, without wanting to spare your blushes, I know that you've been to a number of Siboses over the years. How does this one, do you think, compare to the more than a dozen that you've been to before?
Well, I think, to pick up on Kimberly's point, I think the kind of collaboration thing has grown stronger over the last few. I mean, I think, in 2008, Sibos in Vienna, as many people remember, happened basically, Lehman went bust on the Sunday before Sibos opened on the Monday, and that had a huge effect on how the event went. And I think since then there's kind of they kind of gone through various different stages of adapting to that shock and adapting to the regulatory environment after that. And I think that there is a kind of growing sense, but but one of the reasons is quite simply having a look at the volumes and having a look at the margins and thinking, well, I cannot afford to do this anymore. I cannot afford to take the kind of solo route. I have to. It's not because I'm a nice person that I'm collaborating. It's because I need to in order for my business to survive in the long term.
Absolutely. Final quick question, anything you're particularly looking forward to or aware of that's coming up either today or the rest of the week?
Well, I guess I'm quite interested in the big issue debate today, the threat, the kind of cybersecurity issues that will be discussed there. I noticed from the panel, it's been a kind of tricky panel to put together. It's a lot of kind of cybersecurity experts. It would be nice to hear from more banks, I think, about how they're tackling things. But I also realise that it's clearly a very sensitive issue for them to discuss in public.
Delicate subject. What about you, Kimberly? Anything that's particularly in your diary?
I think just to follow on from, it's very much a tech-focused year this year. It feels like there's so much talk around data at the moment and big data and how it can be used to best serve the banks and also their customers. I'm really excited to hear what else people have got to say about that topic. It seems to be it's something everyone's really engaged with at the moment and really want to talk about. So I'm quite looking forward to hearing more on there.
Lovely. Well, Kimberly Long from Euromoney and Chris Hall from Sibos Issues, thank you so much for joining us here on Sibos TV. We'll be back in just a few minutes with plenty more and, of course, throughout the rest of the week. Thank you very much.